Hey everybody, welcome back to Gideon Stuff. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Civivi Baklash, a knife that's been out for quite a while, but I want to talk about anyways. I hope you like the new background. Not sure if this is permanent. I'm thinking no. I'm pretty sure you can all guess what this is. But anyways, Civivi Baklash. Also, if you hear noise in the background, it's raining right now. There's a little bit of a rainstorm going on, so yeah. Get some time off work to film a video and it starts to rain. Oh well, that's how things go, isn't it? So let's start off with our size comparisons. So first off, here's our rat. There's the one, and that's not the rat too. That was something else I grabbed. And the two. So what we can see here is that the Baklash, it's not really a small knife. It's a full-size EDC knife in my opinion. In fact, if we get a ruler out here, after we put the rats away, get a ruler out here, let's get some actual measurements going here. We have a blade that comes in, we're going to call that exactly 3.5 inches. You know, just a smidgen under, like not even worth measuring. So 3.5 inch blade, a handle of 4.5 inches. So yeah, 8-inch knife. We'll call it an 8-inch knife. Alrighty, let's bring out some more comparisons. Let's bring out, get back there on screen, buddy. Here's our Spyderco PM2. And where'd that bug out go? There he is. I've got a lot of knives out here on the table right now. And there's our Benchmade bug out. So, yeah, woohoo. Next up, we'll save our Civivis for last today because obvious reasons. So let's bring out our Gerbers. There's the paraframe and the mini paraframe. Substantially bigger than both. And now we'll do our Civivis. So first up, here is the Elementum. There we go. And next up, Praxis. So yeah, Praxis is about the first knife we brought out today that's a little bit bigger than the Baklash. Go over there. I've got a couple other Civivis right here, so we'll do them real quick. Here's my favorite Civivi, the Statera. We'll could be coming back to some of these later. And another favorite of mine, the Vexor, which is just a monster. I sometimes forget how big this knife is. Alright, so with that, we're going to go ahead and get into the review. I'm not going to go and do any cut testing. Well, I'm not going to go and show any carry right now because, well, this knife has been reviewed a lot, and it's a Civivi. You know it's going to cut good, and it carries just about like every other Civivi. So, let's go ahead and jump right in with everything that I like, first of all. So, first thing, like many other Civivis, this knife has a lot of options. You can get this in a ton of different flavors. This knife here, actually, shout out to my dad. This is his knife. I'm borrowing this from him. I got this for him for Father's Day about a year ago. So this version, as you can see here, has the carbon fiber laminate over G10 handles, which is cool. You can get these with a bunch of different colors of G10. I think you can get these in brass now with 154 cm, so lots of different options. Speaking of 154 cm, the blade steel on this guy is, you're probably not going to be able to see that, 9CR18 MOV. It's perfectly fine steel, stainless, holds an edge pretty well, and it's easy to sharpen. In fact, I think 9CR18 is probably one of the better beginner steels out there, so it's good to see it here. Next thing that's good, the Ergos. Yeah, these are really nice. You have this really gray area here for your thumb to rest on. Some good functional jimping. You have a choil up here you can choke into. Like this grip here, if you're going to be breaking down cardboard, this is what you want to do. You have a lot of purchase on the knife. It's not going anywhere. You're really locked in, and it's comfortable. When you're holding it up there, you can feel the clip a little bit, but not too bad. When you're back here, you can't feel that clip hardly at all. So that's very, very nice. It's a liner lock. Let's go ahead and talk about that clip. It's Civivi's standard clip, and it works. It works fine. This is a good clip. It is reversible, so they get points for the lefties. Flat screws. The clip itself is not recessed into the scale, but it goes in and out of the pocket, no problem. So don't have an issue there. Back to the blade for a little bit. Yeah, it's a cutter. All Civivis have excellent grinds. You know, you're talking 14, 15 thousandths behind the edge. So if you're going to cut something, you can do it. As far as EDC cutting tasks go, you've got no problems here. So yeah. The next thing that's good, the price point. These start at, I think they start at $42. And then you go up and up from there. You know, you've got Damascus versions, you know, like I said, the different fancy handle materials. This version here with the carbon fiber G10 handle and the 9CR blade is just a little bit more expensive than the base versions with the G10 and 9CR. And then, of course, like I said, you have the brass with 154 cm. So there's a lot of options, a lot of different price ranges, but all of them are priced very well. Also, again, another thing that Civivi does great, T8 hardware all over the place and not very much hardware at all. Also, very lightweight. Did I say that the price was the last thing I was going to talk about? Because if I did, I was stupid. But very lightweight, especially for being as chunky as it is. In fact, let's bring out the Wrap 1. Yeah, this is a chunky boy, which I don't mind chunky knives because it adds to the ergonomics. It makes this knife very comfortable, very hand-filling. So, yeah, that's not bad at all. Another thing with the ergonomics that kind of adds is the way that they did these handles here. You can see there's like the scalloping here. You can definitely feel that when you're holding the knife, and especially up here, it gives your fingers a little bit of a spot to grab onto. So it's pretty cool. And yeah, we're going to end it there for what I think is good. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the bad. All right, I know what you're all thinking. Wait a sec. You made it through the good without talking about the action on a Civivi? Yeah, I did. Which is going to bring me to the part of the video where we talk a little bit about Civivi as a whole. So like I said, I got this knife for my father for Father's Day. And I was pretty excited to give it to him. And he opened it up, he pulled it out, and so, you know, he opened it up and he, you know, did the, you know, flung it out the rest of the way like that. And I said, Dad, no, look, you don't have to do that. I said, just, you know, give it to me. I said, you don't have to wrist flick it out. That's like, watch. You just got to be a little firmer with it. And I realized, ooh, geez, this action is not great. The detent is not great. I mean, on the close, yeah, it's a good close, but the detent is not great. And this was not the first problem I'd had with a Civivi or even a Baklash. This was not the first time I had that problem with the Civivi or Baklash in particular. I actually had a Baklash, one of the blue G10 ones, and it did not impress me. The ergonomics were amazing. This knife, the ergos are the best thing about this knife, in my opinion. The ergos are just fantastic. But I did not like the G10. It felt a little bit odd. I did not like the G10 on that one. And the action was just not good. In fact, sometimes I go to deploy the thing, and the detent is so light that before you're even ready to put pressure on the flipper tab, you know, you go and you take it out, and then it's already going. You know, it's just, the blade just kind of pops out, and you're like, well, I wasn't ready. And see right there, you know, if you really go for it, you can deploy this knife. But I'm not sure if you guys can tell, but I'm putting a lot of pressure into that. As for push button, there's like a there's like a 50% chance that it'll deploy reliably. The detent on this knife is not good. So when I got this one for my father, I thought, you know what? This is a more expensive Baklash. The handle material will probably be better, and the action will probably be better. The action was terrible, and this handle material, I don't really like. This carbon fiber G10 stuff, I'm not a big fan of that. But, yeah. So count that as a different bad thing. I'm not a big fan of this stuff. So that was kind of disappointing. And, ooh, it's really starting to rain out there. I'm not sure if you guys can hear that. And right now I'm actually going to bring out some other Civivis. Now, I have hinted in the past, in reviews I've done in the past, that I do not think Civivi is the greatest budget knife company out there. And I might get a lot of hate for what I'm about to say, but I don't think Civivi is the best budget knife company. They're not the king of budget knives. So here's the thing. I like Civivi. I do like Civivi. I have more Civivi knives than any other brand. However, I have sold more Civivis than any other brand as well. So let's look at this guy here. This is the Civivi Dogma. This happens to be one of the copper versions. The detail on this guy is very light. It does not, it's very light. Now, if you really want to, if you really push button it good, it comes out. Light switching, yeah. When you light switch it, it's a little bit of a lazy flip, but, it works. Push buttoning it is the snappiest way to do it. However, on this knife, in some ways it makes a little more sense because a lighter detent allows you to also, whoops, thumb flick it and do the good old reverse flick. This knife is flipper tab only, which means the detent on this guy can be a lot harder. There's no thumb studs, there's no thumb hole, there's no fuller, there's nothing. It's flipper tab only, which means it needs to have a strong detent. Now, I do think that actions are a problem with a lot of Civivis, honestly. They do a lot of things great. Hardware, Civivi uses T8s all over the place. That's fantastic. Their blades are always spot on. They do fantastic blades. But I think Civivi's biggest downfalls are sometimes in terms of action, handle materials, and design. We'll maybe get into that a little bit here later. So this is the Civivi Elementum. This is my second one. The first one I had was a blue G10 version. Just like my first Baklash was a blue G10 version. And that first one I had did not have very good action. This one, yeah, this one is, whoops, very snappy. In fact, the detent on this one might even be a little bit too hard because it does take quite a bit of pressure to get that out. But on a flipper-only knife, I'd rather have a detent that's a little bit too hard than a little bit too soft. So that's great. Let's bring out my Praxis real quick. I like this knife a lot. I hate the flipper tab. I do not think Civivi does a great job with their flipper tabs. With this one, it's very tiny, and it can lead to missed deployments. The detent on the Praxis is a lot better than on this guy. And actually, I have my cousin, he has a Praxis, and the action on his Praxis, the detent is actually a lot better than mine. But mine's not bad, so. Let's bring out some knives that aren't Civivis for comparison. This is the Best Tech Swordfish. I think Best Tech does amazing with their flipper tabs. Look at this. See how the scale goes into the flipper tab? Now, there are things that Civivi does better than Best Tech. Hardware is one of them. And the fact that Bestech very rarely has reversible clips. But in terms of action, I think Bestech, I mean, do you see how fast and hear how snappy that was? And the close is good. Even if you push button it, this flipper tab is not made for push buttoning. It's not very comfortable, but you can still do it. Let's try and fail this. Let's go as slow with as little pressure as possible. As you can see, the detent is strong. And that was a lazy flip, but it flipped out all the way and it locked up. And that was me trying to fail this knife, trying very hard to fail it. Let's see if I can fail it with a light just kind of off the top. No, that's a good action. It's a very, very good action. This is the Bestech Paladin, which also, in my opinion, has a fantastic push button action because of the way their flipper tab is shaped. And you can light switch it. Bring out the subject of today's review again. I do not think Civivi does the best flipper tabs. Now let's look at the flipper tab on this guy. I have a couple of issues with him. Number one, you can see how the flipper tab is kind of below the pivot. This is a CGRB Gobi. As you can see, the flipper tab is actually above the center line of the pivot. And what that does is that gives you a law of leverage to... listen how snappy that is. This is a very hard knife to fail as well. But yeah, so that's one problem with this flipper tab. Next problem I have is the jimping here is not good. It's not good jimping. And as for back here, if you're going to push button it, that's just entirely too smooth. It need to be a little bit more flat there because it's easy to slip off the back there. So yeah, not a great flipper tab. Again though, I'm trying to say this where I'm not completely hating on Civivi because I do not completely hate Civivi. This is the Civivi Vexor, one of my favorite Civivis ever. And as you can see here with their flipper tab, center line of the pivot is pretty much equal with the flipper tab. And the jimping on it, that is how you do jimping. And look at the action on this guy. That is snappy. And the detent is strong enough to have a great flip, but you can also thumb it out like that. So that's awesome. All right, I want to wrap this up because I don't want to get into, a whole rambling rant. But Civivi has a reputation as the budget knife brand. And as I've said before, they do a lot of things right. But there are several things, going back to this, to the action. You might think, well, that's just one bad, you've got one bad model. And if that's the case, then I keep getting a lot of bad models. I've handled 2 backlashes, and they both had action that was not good. And actually, you know what? I'm not the only person. I was talking with another reviewer whose name I will not mention right now because, if I get any angry people in the comments, I don't want them going over and bothering him. But he's a little bit of a bigger reviewer than I am. And we were talking, and he said that he'd had an experience with a backlash that was not good either. And, sometimes I think with Civivi, it's hard to think of them as having done anything negative because most reviewers give every Civivi model that comes out a shining review. And I'm not saying other reviewers are bought out. Don't say that in my comment section. Don't go and bother other reviewers and say that because that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is I think that Civivi, their reputation precedes them. And sometimes it precedes them. I'm not sure where I was going with that, but yeah, you know what I'm saying. So, another thing I kind of get burnt out with on Civivi is I think a lot of their designs are kind of generic, and I do think that this design here is pretty generic. I'll say it again, the Ergos are the best thing about this knife. The Ergos on this knife are amazing, but it's a pretty generic looking knife in my opinion, and I'm just not the biggest fan. You know, when I was talking with this other reviewer, he brought that up too about the generic designs. And as we're talking, we're like, you know, are you even allowed to say anything bad about Civivi? You know, it seems like they have this fantastic, you know, everyone loves them. And I think what it is what I'm going to be calling the Big Mac effect, right? So, so I had a Big Mac last night, 2 nights ago, actually. I had a Big Mac. And I hadn't had one in a while, but I got one because I remembered, I was like, you know, Big Mac, I like Big Macs. Big Macs are pretty good. So I got one, and I ate it, and I was like, I mean, that was good, but I mean, I think a regular cheeseburger would have been good too. You know, in fact, for me, I love my green chili cheeseburgers that I get from, well, in my area, Lottaburger. If any of you have ever eaten at Lottaburger, you know. And I call this the Big Mac effect because I'm sure when the Big Mac first came out, everyone was all over it. You know, it was probably amazing. You know, it was new. It was exciting. You know, it had their special sauce, and it had that third piece of bread in the middle for some reason. And then as the years go by, you know, maybe the Big Mac doesn't age well, especially if you're leaving it on your counter. No, I'm just kidding. But anyways, what I'm saying is I think Civivi came out, because the Baklash is one of their original models. And so Civivi came out with these knives, and they were big hits. Because when Civivi came out, budget knives were not on this level. And I think the biggest thing that carried Civivi was their blades and their grinds. And yeah, their actions, I think, were different and good for a budget knife. But the thing is I think the Baklash in particular is becoming a little bit outdated and needs a revisit. And it has gotten a revisit with the brass or copper and 154 cm version. Maybe I'll get one of those and see what I think about it. I do think Civivi is making steps in the right direction. Here's a new Civivi, the Riffle. I love this knife. This knife is incredible. The action is good. You know, they have the detail on this one is perfect. You know, the flipper tab again, I don't think this is a great flipper tab, but you know what? It'll work. You can flick it. You can, thumb it. You can slow roll it. And the flipping action is snappy. So that's awesome. And they're coming out with a bunch of new models that they've announced for Blade Show. I'm doing this I'm recording this review just about a week or so before Blade Show, and you know, they've announced some models that I think look pretty interesting. Some button locks. They've got some really cool designs. They're collaborating with some really interesting makers. And so I think I'm excited. I'm still keeping my eye on Civivi. But anyways, we're going to kind of wrap up that rant, and let's go ahead and just finish off with this knife personally. So I mentioned I don't like the action. I do not like the handle material. I think the knife itself looks pretty generic. This lanyard hole to me is a little bit excessive. And this knife here is actually slightly off center. So, let's wrap this up. I really don't like doing kind of ranty videos, and I don't know, I just start feeling bad inside. Is this a good knife? Can I recommend this knife? I think if you want a Civivi, there are other places to go besides the Baklash. I know a lot of people love the Baklash. Slicey Dicey in particular, I know, loves the Baklash. For me, the very best thing about the Baklash is the ergonomics, because the ergonomics are fantastic. And in fact, the ergonomics might be the best in Civivi's current lineup. Yeah, I mean, I think they're pretty much tied with the Insight. In fact, actually, now that I'm holding them both, the Baklash might have better ergos than the Insight. So, in my opinion, that's the best part about this knife. The blade is really good. If you're looking for an EDC knife to just cut stuff, pull out of your pocket, make a cut, get it back in your pocket, the blade and the ergos on this knife are fantastic. As far as utility goes, it will work for you really, really good. However, if you're wanting something that also feels nice, I wouldn't go with this guy. To me, this knife does not feel nice. And listen to this. I didn't bring this up, but I guess I'll bring it up now. Ah, dang it. It doesn't make the best sounds. I don't know, it just feels kind of cheap to me. But yeah, as far as utility goes, it'll work for you. In fact, my dad does carry this knife and use it. And it works for him. As far as cutting things go, it will cut. But I think Civivi has better knives out there. And in fact, if you're looking at the Baklash and you're thinking, I really, really want to pick that up, I'm going to go ahead and offer you some alternatives. The first of which is going to be that riffle I had out earlier. Fantastic knife, 55 bucks. Great blade, better fidget factor, better action in my opinion. It does still have the reversible clip. The ergos on this knife are still very good. Not as good as the Baklash, but still very good. Blade is excellent. I'll also recommend either the Praxis. Stand these guys up out of the way. Or the Insight. These two are kind of switchable in my opinion. And yeah, we'll leave it at that. These are all kind of in the same size range. Something about the riffle, though, is it's in 14C28N, which is one of my favorite steels. And that's another thing Civivi's doing, is using more steels other than D2 and 9CR. So keep going, Civivi. I'm rooting for you, and I will still be supporting and buying Civivis. Anyways, that's going to be all I have for this video. I know Civivi Baklash is a classic that a lot of people love, but for me, it just doesn't hit the mark. I'm sorry for all the backlash in this video. We'll see you in the next one.